first days of the full-scale invasion. I was in Kyiv. People just literally tried to understand how can I contribute to the resistance. This war is the most digitized war in the world from the beginning of history. There are numbers of corporate fraud attempts using like Deepfake CEO face who is like trying to manipulate you to transfer some money to another account.
Hello friends, this week I am talking to the co-founder of a startup that was literally forged in fire. Mantis Analytics was set up by a group of technologists in Kyiv in the immediate days after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They use AI to fight disinformation. So they track information coming out of Russia and they use AI technology to understand what's going on, to try and build narratives and ultimately to help inform Ukraine's war effort. So naturally, I was super excited to meet Anton and to speak to him. And in this conversation, we get into lots of detail around exactly what disinformation is, how they're using AI to combat it, how they set their company up in the immediate days after Russia's invasion. And we talk a lot about the public sphere generally and about how misinformation, malinformation, disinformation can potentially impact our societies at large. So it's a super interesting conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Let's get into it. Anton Tarasyuk, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good. Thanks so much for jumping on. So for the listeners' background, we've had a brief kind of chat on LinkedIn, and I found your story fascinating, and it feels like you are in a insanely interesting, possibly terrifying, but very certainly important space in technology right now, in the AI space. So yeah, could I first of all just get a bit of an intro to you, to who you are, and kind of how we've come to meet one another?
Yeah, sure. My name is Anton Tarasyuk, and I'm a co-founder and an expertise lead in a Ukrainian startup, Mantis Analytics. Mantis Analytics is a startup with the mission of protecting cognitive security of people, governments, and organizations. And basically, we're doing two things. Like, we're building a platform for information field monitoring, AI-driven platform, from the perspective of the information war or information competition. And the second, we provide analytics with respect to the information war and information competition. These are basically like things we are focused on. Yeah.
Okay, and so to be clear, when we talk about the information war, the reason your company came into being in the first place was Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Yep, that's it. The story behind it is pretty interesting, and I don't want to sound like cynical here, but if there was no war, this startup would not exist, because we can come back to the first days of invasion, like first days of the full-scale invasion. I was in Kyiv in these days, and the atmosphere around was like, people were shocked because of the unexpectedness and unprovokedness of the aggression being unfolding, and people were trying like to understand how to navigate this space and how to contribute. So the attitude was like, and I'm not exaggerating here, like people just literally try to understand how can I contribute to the resistance, how can I contribute to the victory. And people did all kinds of stuff. Like some people conscripted, some people were volunteering to get like medical kits, to supply some equipment to the front lines. Some people were preparing Molotov cocktails. Luckily, they did not use them. because they are not pretty useful against the professional army. So this was at least it was a kind of psychotherapy for them.
Okay.
Yeah, there is an ongoing joke in Ukraine that like that was a kind of psychotherapy, and
Okay.
and there were lots kind of like chats, like literally chats in messengers. Like the advertisement
Right.
community was
Yeah.
chatting, AI community was chatting, IT community was chatting, and out of one of those chats, like there emerged a group of people. I would want to say that like Ukraine is very potent with IT talent. So there are lots of great IT specialists here who work like on all kinds of stuff and in all kinds of corporations. But at that time, they were also focused on like this idea: how can I contribute? How can I like do something? Because there is something strange when like your city is being bombed and you are sitting and generating AI merchandise for some pop singer or for some fancy brand. Yeah, people wanted like to do something real, something that could have an impact on their like environment, and this is how we gathered like. This is how the core team gathered around the idea that we can help with the AI technologies and not by doing cocktails, not by supplying medical kits, because there are people who are doing it much better than we could. But there is this great tool, like the most potent tool probably on the whole earth, and you can use it for the impact of your country and your fellow citizens. Maybe you should not use it like at least for a time, like to generate AI concepts of T-shirts. This is the real example.
Yeah, for sure. Just very quickly, Anton, I don't know if your mic is like next to a piece of clothes or something, but it's kind of I can hear like a
So,
sort of
so,
scratch
so.
as you move. Anyway, but yeah. So look, I mean, that's I can only imagine what that must have felt like, and I can completely understand how you might have felt like the normal lines of work or the normal things, the normal outputs that 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 me and my kind of marketing colleagues every day are kind of working towards probably seemed a little bit silly and frivolous and like you kind of had to do something. So just briefly on your background, so you are an AI, are you trained in AI or are you like a software developer, generalist? Like what's your specific background? And then we'll get on to your co-founders and how the company came
Yeah,
about.
yeah. I'm not an AI specialist myself. I come from the different background, from the strategic communications background. So I was and I am experienced in influence campaigning,
Right. Okay.
in creating strategic narratives, in analyzing the information space, and so on. And
Yeah.
basically, this is how my title came up. Like I'm an expertise lead. Yeah, because when we talk about the information space, the disinformation tactics and techniques, and the influence flows, there are lots of methodological questions that came to mind and are to be addressed to be effective.
Yeah.
Probably I'm the only non-tech guy in our team because we're really like tech savvy and tech focused.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so necessarily, I was forced to get acquainted with the area and with basic understandings of technologies. Yeah, but
Sure.
I'm the Stratcom guy.
Okay. And so, um, how did you meet your co-founders, and what was so the company is Mantis Analytics. Um, so yeah, how did you meet your co-founders, and did you set this up in direct response to the information war going on alongside the physical war at the time?
Yeah. Firstly, the project was like a volunteer based. So there was no idea of creating a company. It was not like on the agenda, to be honest, for some time. Like the environment was pretty chaotic, and the challenges were like immediate. So they needed an immediate response, and I was in the I was in like one of those chats, and I was working on a kind of similar project that with another IT specialist, like to monitor the information space, and that's how I met my co-founder Maxim Tereshenko, who is a CEO of Mantis Analytics. Like he saw that I'm doing something pretty similar. That we had a call, and then I understood that there is a potential here, and we can empower each other. And I jumped in. After some time, our CTO and the third co-founder joined us, Ostap Vychopin. He is like a great tech data products guy, and yeah, this is basically how we covered like all three pillars, like operational, technical, and methodological. So yeah, it was a natural match for us because we have complementary skills and don't compete with each other.
Yeah. And so you were all based in Kyiv at the time?
I was in Kyiv at the time,
Yeah.
but my colleagues like were moving between Kyiv and Lviv. So yeah, we're all in Ukraine. Yeah, we are all
Yeah, yeah,
staying in
yeah,
Ukraine right now.
yeah. I mean, take me back to that time because it must just have been terrifying. And the idea, it just the thing that struck me about when you got in touch was I don't know if I would have the presence of mind to be thinking, right, what are my skills? How can I best deploy them? How can I help my country? I think I would have just been like, I really just don't know. So like, how did you kind of assemble this team with a clear-headed mission to build something that can actually help in the midst of what must have been a terrifying event?
Yeah, I would say that to have to have a kind of mission in these circumstances is the way to clear the head, because
Okay.
there is so much going on. Like people saying all kinds of stuff. People saying around you say some all kinds of crazy stuff. The information sphere is overflooded with rumors, with disinformation, with panic, with just who knows what, and
Yeah.
you just. I don't know, and people say that it wasn't. It is still common. Like you just sit and you think like, how can I contribute? Because the minutes that are passing by like are considered to be waste of time, and I think that's just the stress working on you, and it came pretty naturally, to be honest. But I guess that helped. That helped because when you know what to do. You don't have much time to wonder about the circumstances that may be grim sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into what it is that you're actually doing then. So, first of all, if you could just kind of describe what the information space is between Ukraine, Russia, the rest of the world, like because I feel like I feel like I see bits of it, and I want to talk about like NAFO fellas and like the OSN communities and all of that stuff. I feel like the rest of the world sort of sees it because we're in a a global social media space, but like it's very kind of it's a very particular kind of network, right? Like just describe it for me, the world that you're working in.
Yeah. So I would begin with like what was happening in Ukraine in those days, like in the first days. So
Yeah.
the this war is the most probably digitized war in the world from the beginning of history, and this war is the most disinformation, so to say, war. So from the beginning of the war, there were lots of false and harmful information spreading around, especially in Ukraine. Like from the first day. So I would give you like one example. From the first day, there was this news coming out that there are like some kind of marks on the streets, like graffiti marks, and that Russian agents, for some reason, put them on the streets to help the rockets and the artillery aim at the right direction. So this is the total nonsense. How can rocket understand that there is a mark being put on the street? Yeah, but
Right. Yeah.
but but
So just to be clear, that was nonsense.
that,
That can't happen.
yeah, that was total nonsense. But people under the stressful circumstances, their cognitive abilities are probably not at their high level. They're stressed. They do not know how to navigate the space, how to understand what's going on. This is their first experience of the real war going on, and people get paranoid. So they think that there are actually these people who are putting these marks, and they try to be paranoid with respect to you. Like you are going somewhere, like I don't know, like in the shop or whatever. They see that you are not from the area. They're getting really suspicious. And when you are at war, the suspicion may be the life and death problem. And as far as we understand right now, this was an information campaign, probably of Russia's origin, because it helped to really spread the panic in the cities. But that's the total nonsense. Like, how can a rocket find the mark, like real? This little graffiti mark. When you think about it right now, that's just stupid. Yeah, and this is the information space we woke up in on the February in the February 2022, and
Yeah. So what you're saying is people were already insanely paranoid about Russia well before they had invaded, because clearly the invasion was not the beginning of this, was it? I mean, Russia had been, secretly operating in Ukraine since like 2014, I believe.
yeah, people were a bit stressed prior to it, but the main challenge came after the 24th February, because the information space just exploded. So there were like lots of these
Right.
things that were not only false but harmful, and that's like the definition of disinformation. So this is not only like false information, but it is also harmful information. And from now on, we're living in a kind of space like it. So there are lots of info that is aimed for you to be harmful for you, and and to like understand what's going on, it is not only needed to understand what actual people are saying. So it is not enough to look into like what some person in Russia says, what some of the narratives are being pushed. There is a need to look into information flows, because the amount of data and the amount of information is so huge that it is not about like some kind of separate piece or some kind of opinion. It is about the flow, and
Right.
when we're thinking about disinformation, it is mainly about the flow. So it is not about some one separate piece being investigated. It is about the flow, and it is about the direction of that flow. And I would advise people to at least keep that in mind when they're looking into the Russia-Ukraine situation, because Because sometimes you do not understand that you are being influenced right now, and the idea behind what you are reading or what you are looking into is to actually to harm you. Yeah.
So when we talk about the information flow, essentially is essentially what you're talking about social media content. So is it just like high volumes of posts across all platforms, or is there anything else to it that you're looking at?
When we're talking about information flow, it is basically it's basically three things, like, and they're pretty obvious. This is the media outlets working on. This is social media activities, and these are like social media commentaries and reactions of people. So basically, this creates the kind of information campaign or an information flow that is being disseminated. Not only, so these are not only like outlet pieces for obvious reasons. And if we say particularly about Russia-Ukraine war, it is 99% Telegram. So Telegram
Yeah.
Messenger is the main app that is because it is pretty not pretty. It is hugely popular in Ukraine and Russia, and this is the focus of it. So if you want to see the latest news or latest things that happened with respect to war, you should look into Telegram
Yeah. So
yeah.
I feel like I get all of my news about Ukraine on Twitter, and
Yeah.
I feel like the most up-to-date news on Twitter is usually a screenshot of Telegram
Yep,
translated.
yep, yep. That's
That's
it. Yep.
because like so the reporters who are most up to date, they're screenshotting Telegram.
Yeah.
So I mean, but Telegram must be very difficult for you to do analysis on, right? Because like a platform like Twitter has quite an open API that you can run data on quite easily. I would think Telegram's whole kind of selling point is encryption, right? So that must be much more difficult.
Mm, the, it is a bit of a difficult problem, but we managed to do it, we, and we managed to do it compliantly, because one thing of Telegram is encryption. The second thing, it is uh, not so heavy on compliance, to be honest. Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, it can be
So it's
worked on.
possible, and
Yeah.
and so you're spending most of your time monitoring Telegram then, in that case.
We at Mantis monitor all kinds of stuff, but we're focused on Telegram specifically right now for the reason
Yeah.
of the Russo-Ukrainian war going on, and we have our own data storage with respect to Telegram.
Okay. And so, um, I guess so. What is it that you are looking for? So you're providing analytics on the flow of information. Presumably, there's qualitative as well as quantitative information you're looking for. So, by which I mean, are there keywords that you're looking to understand? Is it just is it particular accounts and their networks? Like, what is it about the actual information itself that you're looking for?
Yeah. So first of all, let's sketch the pipeline. Let's sketch the pipeline, and it's
Okay.
pretty easy to grasp. So when you are talking about the some information activities, and they're pretty similar, like to marketing activities. So they're not like very very differentiated. There are some peculiarities, but I guess they're pretty similar. So you have the analysis. You should understand like what's going on. The second thing, you are building some kind of a strategy around it, and then you are executing. So our focus is the first step. So we are focused only on analytics, because as we engaged with it, we understood that like people in different think tanks, in some governmental institutions, we're just literally sitting and looking through all this stuff manually, and their creative energy was not fueled into into creating counter narratives, into briefing stakeholders, into crafting some kind of strategies to block these activities or to prevent people from consuming this data. They were just like looking through charts and tables, unlimited tables, and so this is why we focused only on analytics. And the second thing is AI is here of a great help, because we are coming to the point when no separate human mind could grasp in a few minutes like what's going on. So there are the cognitive abilities required to quickly look what's going on, and we're speaking about the importance of reaction in real time. The cognitive abilities of the human mind are pretty limited with respect to the amount and quality of information that is being disseminated. What we look into, and I'm coming to the answering your question directly. What we look into firstly the main narratives, the information flows, or the information campaigns. You can call it probably by these names, being communicated right now. We are training our models to detect them, because there is one way you can look into them. You can look into them by keywords, but keywords are pretty reliable on a human bias, to be honest. So there is the analytical judgment of a separate researcher behind them. So he or she decides what keywords are being used, and something could be missed. AI has does not have these biases, so it can find these narratives with a more in a more accurate way. And the second thing we are looking into is the sources, because when we are speaking about disinformation space, it is one of the criteria that could help to understand whether it is or whether it is not a disinformation is the source.
Yeah. So there's the source is clearly very important. Keywords important but not super reliable, because they're subject to the biases of whoever's programmed the keyword analysis. And so AI is doing something much more subtle, presumably, which is getting a deeper understanding of all of the different information not infrastructure landscape, and able to draw narratives out of this high volume of content that's just going all the time. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, it is fair. It is a fair summary. Yeah, and as far the word summary goes, we are also summarizing the information, because when you are working with these huge information flows, there is no reason to actually to dig into nuances here, because we're speaking not about the quality data, not about quality content, or even like representative content. So we are not speaking about, for example, of the statements of officials. They are included into it, but they are included into it like as a part of the flow, and they could and they should be analyzed also separately. For example, there is the difference between like what some official is saying, for example, Russian official, and the news and social media communicated around this. There is the difference between this piece as the separate statement and this piece as the part of the flow. And when we're speaking about like understanding the disinformation flow, we're speaking about the flow. And yeah, this is it. Yeah. So
And so do you? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was saying that the fourth thing that we are doing is we are working on automatic disinformation detection, and this is the whole different story. The whole this is the whole different story with respect to methodology, with respect to technologies, and I would just like to say that we are not as the company. We are as a humanity probably are at the beginning of the process. So there are discussions around this process, like whether it should be even in place. For example, there was the piece by a U.S. Israeli journalist Jacob Siegel, who said that the whole idea of disinformation is hoax. So we should just should just rely on these discussions and being nice to each other and being open to each other and like like this old public sphere sentiment that is pretty popular in some circles.
Look, so I think that's you're right. That is a question that is, global, right? Like it doesn't just apply to the Ukraine war. It applies to the world. So how are you? But I suppose the counter to that in the Ukraine case is that, this like there's real information about the battlefield, right? That like people are pretending that towns have been taken over or not or whatever. People are lying about real battlefield information, and so there's a real need to be able to distinguish between what's true and what's false, because lives are at stake, right? So you can't just say, oh well, let's all just have a conversation about it. You need to find real facts, and so that's where things presumably like open source intelligence and all of that come in. So how are you? So I've got a couple of questions actually on the back of that. But first one, what do you mean by the terms misinformation and disinformation? Do you have definitions that you work with at Mantis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question actually, because when we dig into this stuff, we can see a lots of terms being used, and there is little of clarification here. And when we speak about AI, we should be pretty clear, because it is a formalist medium and it needs to be provided clear list of criteria, and clear list of criteria should rely on clear definitions, or at least of sets of definitions. So when we speak about disinformation, we can compare it with the two other terms, being malinformation and misinformation. So misinformation is basically the false stuff. For example, there are communities that are speaking about flat Earth. This is not a harmful information. On a large scale. On a large scale, you can spread dumb things. No harm here. And malinformation is basically harmful information. For example, you have a CEO of a company. He or she made some stupid or aggressive or xenophobic remarks, and you just publish the information. This is malinformation from his point of view. This is being a hit piece on him or her. This kind of information can be even considered of public interest, because this is what journalists can do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And if a public figure is, a racist or something, it's probably in the public interest for everybody to know that that's the case, right?
But from the point of view of this figure, that could be considered malinformation and considered truly, because that is a hit on this public person. This and the publishing of such pieces is of probably more of a moral nature or public interest nature, so there could be discussion. So if we want to have a good flourishing public sphere, there should be at least a space to publish such things. And when we're speaking about disinformation, these are basically two criteria come to match. It means that this is the false information, and this is the false information that is aimed to harm you physically, to harm you commercially, to harm you politically, or to harm you via reputation attacks. So I think that this is a pretty good operational definition to understand, like, is it disinformation, or is the person communicated in, is being just wrong, or is
Right.
this person is trying to accomplish some kind of a goal which he or she thinks is
Yeah.
even worth achievable. Yeah.
Is there harmful intent, or malice aforethought? I think is how they define it in UK law.
Yeah,
Right. Okay. So that's a bit.
come back to those marks in Ukraine. This is a good example, and this is the example that spread into the physical world. I saw people who were looking for those marks. Like, they were saying, "Okay, we are checking the ground for them," and this was purely
Right.
harmful, and it was purely false. There were no marks, but I guess maybe there were some old graffitis that were perceived as such, but not for rocket strikes.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Yeah. Just I think your mic is gone back to touching your t-shirt. All good. You were fine up until just now. I don't know what happened.
Sorry for that.
Okay. So no. Don't worry. All good. So disinformation is the one that is the real concern as far as Ukraine is concerned. Then I think it sounds like it's information that's false, that's aimed at trying to give Russia some kind of strategic advantage or tactical advantage.
Yeah, basically, it gives you an advantage. It gives you an advantage, and it gives you an advantage on different levels. For example, you can, when you are conducting a kind of operation, and as we know, the first operation was trying to get Kyiv in a couple of days or weeks, and if you have the chaotic environment, people being paranoid, people being scared, people looking for some kind of stuff that does not exist, this helps you to advance actually. So the timing was pretty good here for them, and this is basically why they did it. The second thing, it can give you advantage on the longer term. Not these kinds of like, not this direct chaotic information being spread, but spreading the false narratives that are for long-term usage. For example, the narrative that Ukrainians are Nazis and that there is a Nazi regime. It is pretty 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 obvious disinformation, because this is the false information, this is harmful information, like aimed to get not the physical harm, yeah, but the reputational harm, and
Yeah.
to harm on a longer term.
Yeah. So do you distinguish between like the kind of you mentioned, Russian political figures, and so do you distinguish between like the top level political disinformation or misinformation or information flow, and like the what's going on the battlefield? So, like people who are actually there, soldiers who are, like posting updates onto Telegram or whatever. Is there a big kind of gap between those, or do you see it as all one information space?
There are different levels of granularity, so you can, and we aim to make it as granular as possible because the idea of the flow is the idea that there are subflows in it. So this is the flow can be of this scale, of this scale, of this scale, and this can be the one flow. And there are different sources being in play. With respect to Russia's information activities. So there are official figures, there are official outlets, and Russia being an informational autocracy, to use the term of the economist Sergei Guriev from the EBRR. This is a pretty good term because it helps you to grasp like the idea that the activities of the main outlets are usually coordinated and orchestrated in the following way. So there is a good reason to look into them separately, and we do it. There is so you can think about it this way. There is something that can a public figure, for example. Russia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov, say. There are things that he could not say. What he could not say would say some kind of Russian outlet, some kind of Russian media or Russian expert. Right. What he or she could not say, this expert could not say, would say a kind of independent in quotes journalist. They call it war correspondents, and they're basically headquartered in Telegram, and when you, as you say, see some kind of news about Russia-Ukraine war in Twitter, this is probably a kind of information that could be sourced to these Telegram channels of Russia's war correspondents, and they say much more than the public figure or the public outlet could say, and there are also, the next step is the communities or separate channels of the soldiers or the servicemen who are engaged into the war, and for example, most war crime evidences would be there probably. So they can be pretty uncensored. So they can post something that can be compromising, and
So are you working with the Ukraine government with open source intelligence? Like, are you plugged in with all these guys? Are you doing things like, as you say, documenting evidence of war crimes? Like, what's your degree of involvement with the authorities?
Yeah, we work with some governmental institutions. We work with a bunch of think tanks. Not all of them are focused on the war directly. Some of them are focused on more classical fact-checking activities. Some of them are focused on basically like long-term analytics. We help people to document war crimes, but not by documenting them directly, but helping them with technologies that could basically the idea behind the war crimes documentation right now is twofold. First thing, you have to have data storages and to see data, and the second thing is whitewashing. So when there is some kind of evidence of a war crime posted, Usually it gets deleted, and sometimes because somebody sees it and says you should delete it, it is compromising. And with respect to Telegram, we have the technology to track the whitewashing activities. So we have the technology to understand things being deleted.
Right. So you're not just documenting; you're also documenting the process of removal in real time, as people take this information back out of the information space. You're tracking that movement.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we work also with some OSIT and agencies, and these are not only Ukrainian institutions. But people all around the world are focused on the Russo-Ukrainian war right now, and we can provide a good data for it and about it. And yeah, there are, for example, some of American think tanks we're working on also.
Okay. Okay. And what what are you actually giving these people? What do they like? What's the? We've talked a lot about what you guys do, but what's the actual output? So if I'm working for an American think tank or whatever, like, and I come and work with you, what do I get at the end of it? Is it like a report showing like the full volume of information flow and then some selected pieces? Like, is it like what am I actually going to expect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. We provide, for example, there are two kind of inquiries that people can have, like generally. First of all, they could need some kind of in-depth intelligence about what's going on, and we could provide it. Like we could basically do it. We could structure it, and we could provide it. The second one is we're building a platform, which and the idea of which is basically to give people a tool to make most of this intelligence research by themselves, and we are providing people with the access to the platform.
Right. Okay. So you have a platform that that you can sell access to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. Um, okay. Great. So I guess what's your plan? Like, what are you aiming to continue to grow outside of Ukraine and do in-depth digital analytics on all sorts of different things? Are you focused on the war effort only at the moment? Like, what's your plan?
Mm, the plan really depends on the situation unfolding, and the situation unfolding, as far as we see it, and as far as I myself see it, that the information war or information competition is not the thing that will go with the Russo-Ukrainian war. It has to do with all kinds of things, and firstly, it has to do with the transformation of the public sphere, so to say, because we're in transition from the classical public sphere with classical institutions and classical gatekeepers like editors, journalists, media outlets to a new public sphere which relies on the platforms, and the information is being disseminated in different ways, and the idea of disinformation, and this is why I personally believe that this is not a false or hoax concept, is because it has to do not with the classical public sphere structure, when you basically like cannot publish anything without the editor gatekeeping, and the editor also providing some services for you to make your piece be match some kind of criteria like fact-checking excellence, stylistic excellence. Like nowadays, everybody can publish anything, and this is why the whole problem is created, because the information flows are much more are much larger than they were, and the logic of platforms is a different logic from the classic public sphere institutions. So this basically creates the situation when there is a huge competition, and everybody takes part in this competition, and the industries that are experts in this in hacking this competition, some are trying to hack, are flourishing. So, for example, PR lobbying industry is growing. The amounts of political manipulation in digital spheres are growing. So there was this Oxford University report that said like more than 80 countries are being engaged into some kind of political manipulation in social spheres, and the speed.
80.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I
Yeah.
haven't seen that. I haven't seen that report.
Yeah, and the speed with which the information is being disseminated is fast, and there was the research by which was published in the Science magazine that actually stated that the tweet which contains some kind of false information is 70% higher to be retweeted than other tweets. So basically, this all comes to speed.
Jesus, that's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think we should see it as the different logic with which public sphere is being working right now, and this creates.
Well, it's like it's. Did you read Jaron Lanier's book? He talks about, I mean, and it's a well-known fact now anyway, but how negativity is much more likely to increase engagement than positivity, right? Like the more aggy or angry or shitty you are about somebody, the more likely you are to get attention and engagement.
Yeah.
So it's like a recursive loop of negativity. I can only imagine that in the chaos of a war zone, that's just like on steroids.
Yeah, and this is basically the good example of how the platform is working. Like, if you have a gatekeeper editor, he should think, our magazine is being a bit of a negative right now, so let's put some positive piece here just for a balance. You have no of these in the current situation, and basically the commercial logic behind it would be lacking, because from a commercial side, to sell more ads, you need to drive engagement, and to drive engagement, you need to serve people with what they would like to consume more, and naturally people consume negative
and
information.
what they click on more, and what they share more, and all of that.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and basically right now we are expanding. I was just coming to plans, and just in a few cents, we're expanding, and we're starting to work with U.S. market, because we believe that this is the one of the centers of information competition, and naturally it all comes to US.
Yeah, and so the last thing I want to talk to you about is AI in a different sense, which is like, how worried are you about AI generated content flooding the internet? Like, are you seeing that already with LLMs? And how much worse do you think it's going to get?
I'm worried, and we're seeing it. Basically, generative AI is what is the concern everybody has right now, but there is no clarity with respect to how address it. We see it from different sides. For example, we see that there is a corporate fraud, at least corporate fraud attempts with the use of this deepfakes. They've been okay. It is in place. So there are numbers of corporate fraud attempts using like fake deepfake CEO face who is like trying to manipulate you to transfer some money to another account. So these are these are like records that are being seen. Also, with respect to disinformation and the information flows, generative AI helps a lot, because generative AI lowers the cost of creating a harmful and false piece just to a basic digital literacy. You have the computer, you can generate it, you can disseminate it. And the main thing with disinformation, it is about quantity, to be honest, because there are lots of it. 99% of it is going nowhere, so nobody even reads it. But the 1% is what matters, and the more you have, the more likely your chance is to influence somebody. Because it is basically about quantity. So the idea behind it, you should see a lot of it, and like your cognitive guard is being attacked, and you whether you are directly influenced or you just you become some kind of skeptic with respect to the topic it talks about or whatever. So generative AI is a problem, and this is one of the reasons we think that AI can be beaten only with AI. Like there is no coming back to the pre-disinformation age when you had a kind of gatekeeper, a kind of manual fact checker who is just looking into stuff. This can help.
Yeah, because
But mostly from the methodological side. So there are some kind of patterns, some kind of processes that could be adapted for the AI solutions. But basically, if we have AI-driven disinformation efforts, we should have AI-driven protection methods, and this is basically it. So we are. And I expect the things to become much more grimmer with respect to disinformation activities, because this is the cheap, harmful, and false data that can be spread in minutes.
yeah, and I mean, it's not just about wars either, is it? I mean, you can imagine it in all facets of life. I mean, especially with democracy and elections. You can just imagine candidates just inventing millions upon millions of very vocal supporters who are constantly tweeting, or not tweeting, zeeting, whatever they call it, posting, just constant messages slagging off the opposition and talking up their candidate in a really, really convincing way. And then, we'll presumably get to a position where everyone has to do that. And then, it's going to be difficult to distinguish where the real humans are. And so I guess companies like yours are going to become more and more important in that case, because we're going to be fighting this everywhere, I think. And even, on a more sort of, simple and perhaps less dangerous way in marketing. I think that you're going to have, just legions of AI bots as your sales team. Like a 10-person sales team is going to become 1,000 bot sales team, all, talking to people all at once with moving avatars and, real sounding voices and generated pictures of really attractive looking people who don't exist. Yeah, finding the difference between the real humans and the AIs in that world is going to become bloody difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it will become bloody difficult, and um, but the most dark part here is from the point of view of like analyzing information. There is no difference whether you're like whether the person who shares some kind of information is real or not. Like and when you have
So I suppose on some level, you almost don't care if it's a bot or a human. You're just looking at what's the narrative that that they're trying to push from the top
yeah,
through
yeah,
people and
that's the
bots,
transmitter,
right?
so to say. Yeah, yeah, that's the transmitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is the one way to look into it. There are others, and for you mentioned a good example like of preserving a democracy. Like preserving the democracy is basically like it relies on on another side. Like preserving democracy should rely on preserving some space where you do not look into things from the point of view of only people as disseminators of messages. So basically, there is another risk, like understanding everything as only as a um, mm, kind of malicious information being put or not, like whether it is pro us or against us. So and this is basically the risk, the political risk here. So just to eliminate all the spaces when you have this kind of like shared agreement that you are not looking into what the person communicates to you as a kind of influence campaign on you, like so you should not look into the person as trying to sell you something, basically. And the idea behind this AI solution that it is easily it will become easily to sell you something, and it will become not so easily, but to prevent this selling. And what suffers from it? The discussion and the democratic process, which is basically like the current unlimited dialogue between citizens, will suffer from it, and that's just a concern that probably should be addressed not only by tech companies, because tech companies are driven by another motive, but also by regulators and political actors. That's just a question that we all will address at some point.
Yeah. I mean, how do we have a political debate if nobody knows who's a human or not?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, who knows? Yeah, I don't expect you to know the answer, but yeah, I mean, it's a crazy thought. Well, look, I mean, I guess for that reason, among many others, companies like yours are important. That's why we need smart people working hard to try and figure this stuff out, right? Is to preserve democracy and to preserve a way of life that we've become accustomed to over the last, century or whatever. Um, yeah. Well, look, is there anything else that I haven't discussed that you would like to let let the world know? Well, maybe not the world, my my followers. No, is there anything interesting that I haven't addressed?
Uh, I don't know. I think you addressed all the right topics, and I don't know. I just would like to say that the AI world is pretty interesting and awesome, and your podcast is a great media to translate the message and different opinions, whether it AI doomerism, AI disinformation content, or even like AI girlfriend discussions, and yeah, that's the fascinating stuff. So
Yeah. Oh man, AI girlfriends. Oh, don't get me started on AI girlfriends.
yeah,
Yeah, very very worried about that. I mean, yeah, look, I mean that's given the conversation we're just having, like, yeah, what you know, what's the world going to look like when everyone's got an AI girlfriend rather than a real one? And then how they're going to be influenced. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, well, look, Anton, thanks so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I am, yeah, really feel privileged in a way to get to talk to you, given that you've forged your business in the fire of a war, and I wish you every success. I will certainly be keeping in touch and keeping up to date with what's going on with you, and yeah, come back on anytime.
thanks a lot, Tom, and thanks for having me. Thanks for your openness, and thanks for the great job you are doing with hosting the discussions on AI at your platform. That's pretty valuable stuff. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Yeah.